During many crises that came across time, say for example Katrina, antibiotics were the first to go off the shelves, and decent people died from common diseases that could have easily been treated with common plants. Anyway, at that time, an antibiotic for tuberculosis hadn't yet been invented, so my grandfather used this plant. Now, few Americans know about this graceful weed, and fewer still grow it in their backyard. When the organism is in high stress mode from fighting an infection, this is exactly what you need to bring it to balance and speed up the healing process. Now, the second plant my grandfather used was spotted loco weed, which he always prescribed for shortness of breath and pulmonary infections. After making a concoction out of the two plants, Mary was cured in 2 months, which is amazing considering nowadays it takes at least 6 months to treat it using powerful antibiotics. She enjoyed a life that came so close to ending prematurely. Now, I never knew her story until she told me. And as I looked around at the thousands gathered there, I realized my grandfather must have had many other stories and that a lot of people were only there thanks to his remedies. Was he able to save everyone no matter how advanced or how hard to treat the disease was? Of course not. If someone claims that they can treat your cancer with a miracle cure, you can bet they're crooks trying to take advantage of you. My grandfather wasn't like that. He genuinely cared about all of his patients and was honest with them from the beginning. He didn't have miracle cures, but real cures. I'm sure you remember someone like this too. Maybe your own grandparents or a healer whose remedies baffled doctors. Probably they didn't know as many remedies as my grandfather, but they must have had at least a few time-tested cures of their own. And when you got sick as a child, they worked just as well, if not better, than drugs. That's the kind of precious knowledge my grandfather tried to save and use for the common good all his life. Now let me tell you, my grandfather's funeral was an eye-opening moment for me. The times I spent with him on his ranch in Texas were some of the happiest of my life. When my grandfather died, he left me 3 things that I greatly treasure. The best childhood I could have ever dreamed of, the values that made the man that I am today, and a manuscript. But make no mistake, this is not just any kind of manuscript. It's something that all men and women from coast to coast should know about. It was his plant journal, his book of old remedies, and it began when he was young. My grandfather started writing down all the plants that he was gathering and then took notes of all the tinctures and concoctions used by the medicine man. He had it with him in the fields of northern France. It was what he used to treat many of our brave men when the antibiotics and the pain medications ran out. It's what saved my father's life during the Great Depression when most Americans died from disease and not starvation. It'll do the same in the next crisis. And even after the war, my grandfather's manuscript healed countless people. Some of them had conditions so severe that their own doctors didn't know what to do. And they all showed up on our doorstep, desperate mothers with their children, hopeless seniors plagued by chronic pain, and even bedridden people brought by their relatives. I've seen them all. And my grandfather managed to treat most of them without using any toxic or addictive drugs. He used just what you might have right now in your backyard, weeds that you pass every day without even realizing their true power. This is why I say that this is probably the most precious thing my grandfather left me. I keep it in my medicine cabinet, and it'll be there when I and my family need it the most. But I think it should be in your medicine cabinet, too. That's why I've edited all his manuscripts so that anyone could take advantage of them. Instead of his drawings, I added real color pictures of the plants so that you can easily identify them, and I also replaced his handwriting. And at times it was difficult to understand, probably because some of his notes were written in the field and even in the midst of battle. But other than this, I left the information untouched. His manuscripts had stains of American blood from World War II, and I printed those too, exactly as I found them. After months of work and spending a great deal of time and money, I had it published, and it's called exactly what my grandfather would have wanted, The Lost Book of Remedies. And here's just a glimpse of what you'll find in it. In the first part of my grandfather's The Lost Book of Remedies, you'll find pictures with all the healing plants in North America. For each plant, you'll also learn the little things that you need to look for in order to be 100% sure that you've got the right plant and not a look-alike. And this part goes extremely in-depth, so people with no plant knowledge can use it to its full potential. I gathered medicinal plants for my grandpa when I was 12. If I did it back then, well, I'm sure you can do it now. And with hundreds of healing plants, I knew that I had to find a way for people to quickly pinpoint the one that they need. So first I grouped them by type and location. Now if you're at home, just open the Backyard Weeds chapter to find out what medicines you're growing around your house without even realizing it. For example, I'm sure you've already seen at least one of these so-called useless weeds. Well, my grandfather turned it into the powerful pain-killing extract that he used in World War II. Now, I hope you've never seen a grown man or woman crying in your arms with excruciating pain. So how would you feel to be the only one from your group or town who could offer relief when people need it most? Now, remember the plant that my grandfather turned into an antibiotic and saved my father's life? Imagine when there are no antibiotics and all the pharmacies are either closed or looted. You could shop at the pharmacy in your own backyard. I'm sure you'll also recognize this common driveway weed. Even if you're living in the city, it's kind of hard not to bump into it, and what you probably don't know is that it's a powerful anti-inflammatory that's good for wound healing. If you have a deep cut and there's no doctor or a stubborn wound that won't heal because of diabetes, just using this poultice will grow new skin and will accelerate the body's natural healing process. And I'll show you how to make this poultice and how to use it to dress your wounds. Or if you or one of your friends is suffering from an autoimmune disease, you can take this as a remedy immediately. Native Americans had hundreds of effective remedies, but they also had thousands of remedies that had a spiritual effect, acting more like a placebo. Now, in the Lost Book of Remedies, you'll find just the ones that are medicinally very strong, and one of the most powerful was the Gray Dakota, meaning friend of everyone, and you'll find it on page 227. Rub this old Sioux ointment onto your joints, and in 90% of the cases the pain disappears in minutes, and your joints will become more flexible in days. Gray Dakota relieves back, knee, neck, shoulder, ankle, wrist pain, especially the ones caused by arthritis. Unlike most old folk remedies, Gray Dakota has been tested in over 135 clinical studies using 10,000 plus subjects, and 300 scientific publications recently confirmed the astonishing results. The active compound in the ointment was found to be pliclaginol, which inhibits the inflammatory chemical signals in our body. In this huge chapter, you'll find all the other medicinal weeds and backyard plants that are hidden around your house. You've got a homegrown pharmacy that you didn't even know about, and most of these plants are edible, especially the 3 that you've seen, and can provide you with precious nutrients in a crisis. This goes for all the plants that you'll find in the Lost Book of Remedies. Not only will you learn what part of the plants are edible, but I'll show you how to cook them the right way. Now, in the second part, you'll discover how to identify the wild edibles and remedies that grow in forests. If you ever have to go out foraging, will you know which one of these plants is edible, which one is a remedy for high blood pressure and tension, and which one is poisonous? The Native Americans knew all too well, and so did my grandfather, but very few people nowadays know, so don't feel bad if you don't. These kinds of skills will set you apart from your group during dark times, and will probably turn you into their guide or even savior. So imagine just for a second how it'll feel to be able to be the only doctor for 50 miles, and all thanks to a simple book that you had the foresight to get today. And I'm sure you've seen this plant too. It grows in most forest glades. You'll discover how to use it to effectively treat not only common colds, but lung infections as well. Also, breathing in the steam from leaves that have been boiled in water will calm any asthma attack. So this is why 100 years ago, people with asthma didn't die from it. Now on page 93 and 94, you'll find out about the medicinal tea called the sand tea that you can use to treat a urinary tract infection and to dissolve kidney stones. And if you've ever had to eliminate a kidney stone, you know how painful it can be. Well, the sand tea does exactly what the name says, turns the kidney and gallbladder stones into sand that can be eliminated without pain in just 7 days. If you've ever walked through the edges of woodland and gotten some sticky burrs attached to your clothing, you can bet you've just passed by this plant. And the best way to deal with this annoying weed? Eat it. Native Americans used to use it as sweetener 200 years ago, and it tastes better than all the greens I know. What people don't know is that this plant is a strong diuretic. You can take it for poor blood circulation. If you've ever felt a tingling and numbness sensation in a limb in certain positions, you probably have bad circulation, and you should consider this blood vessel cleanser. I've seen my grandfather's patients go from dizzy and tired most of the time to having an excess of energy in less than 3 weeks. Now, in the third part, you'll discover how to identify the wild edibles and remedies that grow most often in the prairie. But most of them are spread all over America, like boneset, which can be easily turned into one of the most powerful antipyretics. This means that it drastically reduces fever. In fact, the name boneset was derived from the plant's use in the treatment of breakbone fever. Now here's another widespread weed. The folk name of this plant is the cowboy's toilet paper, and if you've ever touched its soft leaves, you'll understand why. Now, if you ever get an infected wound or a cut, just apply the Frontier Poultice. I personally haven't seen a modern bandage that heals wounds faster and better than this. And I'll also show you the strange reason why putting a leaf of this plant in your shoes in the morning is as good as a cold shower and a coffee. Now, a similar weed called woolly lamb's ear can be added to the Frontier Poultice to stop bleeding in a matter of seconds. This plant is high in vitamin K, the vitamin that coagulates the blood. It's the powdered vitamin that was given to soldiers in World War II to pour over the wound in case they were shot. And my grandfather used it when the bandages ran out and his brothers in arms were bleeding to death. Now, I hope you never find yourself looking down at a wound that just won't stop bleeding. But if you do, be sure the Frontier Poultice is your best shot other than being in the ICU. And if you or a loved one has diabetes or problems with coagulation or wound healing, make sure you have this healing cataplasm around your house without delay. If you've ever had irregular heartbeats, then you know how scary it can get thinking that every heartbeat can be your last. They're your body's first warning signs that something's wrong. So turn to page 174 to discover a fast-acting remedy that calms down the irregular heart muscle contractions with no side effects. Now, another plant you want to keep close for a strong heart is called kudzu. And my grandfather wrote, "When farmers began importing kudzu in the 1930s and 40s, I watched with great interest. The plant grows like crazy, a foot or so per day, and farmers were hoping that the plant would control soil erosion and provide fodder for cattle. Well, the cows refuse to eat it, but it does control erosion. I've been told that goats eat it, but they eat most everything. The problem is that the plant grows so fast that it spreads all over everything. And folks in the South joke that if you go on vacation, your house may be completely swallowed by the time you get back. But what they didn't know, and my grandfather found out later in modern medicine just recently, is that this invasive weed had one but very powerful property. It unlocks blood flow throughout the body, helping people with myocardial ischemia and cold hands. And if you've ever had swollen feet, this is probably the best remedy you can find anywhere. No matter where you live in America, there's a source of water nearby. And where there's water, there are cattails. If you find cattails, you'll have everything you need for survival: water, food, shelter, and fuel. You probably already know cattails are edible, but I doubt you know how tasty they are. And I'll show you how I cook them in the field and at home, and how to turn them into flour. But probably the most important and least known thing about cattails is the jelly-like substance that grows between its leaves. My grandfather prescribed it for most severe skin infections, and let me tell you, it's nothing short of a miracle. I've seen abscesses the size of a plate healed in just days. And this gel is also one of the best cures for nail and foot fungus. But now, on a different note, this gel is the only part of the cattail that's widely considered to be inedible. Now, it's not poisonous, so why? Well, because it has a powerful numbing effect on moist tissues and has been used as a Novocaine substitute. Yes, it's an anesthetic that you can use in many, many situations. When the pioneers were hit with a ravaging toothache, they'd just go get their jar of cattail ooze and rub it around their gums and the pain would subside in minutes. Now, another part of the Lost Book of Remedies contains all the medicinal and edible trees in North America. Now, one of the things you'll find here is the ultimate survival tree that grows on almost every street in the U.S. I call it the ultimate survival tree because you can use the sap as medicine, its flowers as sleeping pills, its leaves as food, and the inner bark as cordage. You don't need much more than this to stay alive. But only a handful of people still know this lost skill. So if you're an old-timer like my grandfather, get ready to use this intelligence to its full potential, because in the Lost Book of Remedies, you'll discover thousands of powerful lost cures. On page 221, you'll find a tree called slippery elm. The inner bark of this tree contains a substance called mucilage. And when taken orally, mucilage becomes slick and coats the mucous membranes in the intestinal tract, soothing inflammation, relieving pain, and giving your bowels a much-needed rest to heal themselves. My grandfather wrote, "My patients with Crohn's disease and other digestive upsets feel that slippery elm is a miracle herb." If you have any digestive issues like Crohn's disease, ulcers, gastritis, heartburn, colitis, or gastroenteritis, then you need to try it because it works better and faster than any pill I know. Do you recognize this tree? You might have even scraped yourself on one of its thorns as a child. The Native Americans cooked its honey-sweet pods and ate them. The sharp young spines were used as pins, nails, spear points, and animal traps during the Civil War, when the South suffered many shortages. According to a recent medical study at Michigan State University, the flowers of this tree strongly prevent spreading of prostate, breast, colon, and lung tumors. You'll find all these things in the Lost Book of Remedies. Really, there's too much to say here. There are hundreds of plants you'll find in my grandfather's book, and you'll learn how to turn them into powerful cures. Medicines had all originated from plants until companies started making synthetic versions. This forgotten wisdom should be brought back to life, and today is your chance to play a role in doing that by putting the Lost Book of Remedies where it belongs, on your bookshelf. And finally, in the last chapter of the Lost Book of Remedies, you'll find the once common treatments our grandparents used whenever they were ill. These are the cures of my childhood, and if you've been here a while, maybe yours as well. I'm talking about the common folk remedies they used to bring down fever, cure a sore throat, banish the flu, and many, many more. They used only common household items that you probably have in your cupboard right this second, like the spice you add to your meals that can stop bleeding in just a matter of seconds. You'll also discover one substance you probably overlooked and should add to your medicinal kit or stockpile. This detoxifying agent kills parasites and viruses in the digestive tract. Or the common household stain buster that can clear away most fungal and bacterial skin infections. But you can also use it to disinfect huge quantities of water, even a well. Much better than bleach, which leaves an odor for weeks. And as I told you, this is just a tiny, small glimpse of what you'll find in the Lost Book of Remedies. My grandfather's lifetime work is captured inside. But it's not just that. It's your grandparents' work too, and the generation before them. Over hundreds of years, they conducted the longest, largest, and most honest clinical trial ever, one that pharmaceutical companies' self-funded clinical trials rarely match. With big money on the line, they need these trials to validate their drugs. That's why many pills on the market today have a minimal or no effect at all. If you get the Lost Book of Remedies today, you'll also get to take advantage of 2 exclusive gifts that will be off the table soon. First, you'll get the 80 square feet medicinal garden in your backyard. Now, wouldn't it be nice to walk out into your backyard and find the medicine you need growing right there? If you think about it, 80 square feet is a small piece of land. It's only 10 feet by 8 feet. No matter how small your backyard is, you can grow your own natural remedies there. I'll show you how to make a raised garden bed just like mine, with the most effective medicinal plants you need, and how to plant and harvest them. You'll have the ingredients for my grandfather's remedies within reach, so your medicinal garden will stand toe-to-toe with any conventional pharmacy. And the second exclusive gift you'll get is called Disaster Medicine, a handbook for when help is not on the way. In a cataclysmic crisis, you can bet aid is not coming from anyone but yourself. And in this bonus, you'll find the 20 most common infections and diseases that you'll catch in a crisis. And you'll learn how to diagnose and how to treat them. In a crisis, they account for more than 95% of medical fatalities. And all of that is just scratching the surface of what this bonus has in store for you. So if you choose to place the Lost Book of Remedies on your bookshelf, you'll also get these 2 exclusive bonuses that are worth $29 apiece for free. And unlimited access to the members area, where you can ask me anything at any time. I'll be there to answer your questions and help you if you need any clarification on anything. With the Lost Book of Remedies, you'll also save money on health care. Just think how much you spend each year on drugs. The average American forks over about $800 every year on pills. That's like a $66 recurrent subscription every month, for life. And it gets more expensive as you age. Furthermore, a 15-minute consultation with a general practitioner will set you back around $100 with insurance and $200 or more without it. But I didn't want the Lost Book of Remedies to be anywhere near that. I know I could charge a lot more than a 15-minute consultation, and it would still be a bargain. But I know my grandfather would want to see it in the hands of as many people as possible. So today, you can get your own copy of The Lost Book of Remedies and the 2 bonuses with a one-time payment of just $37. Now, this offer really can't get any better than this. You'll have all my grandfather's lifetime healing knowledge at your fingertips. And with it, you'll not only secure your peace of mind, but also your free healthcare insurance for the next few decades. The Lost Book of Remedies will help you achieve medical self-sufficiency even in the darkest times using the time-tested methods used by our grandparents, and all without spending lots of money on toxic drugs and without any side effects. So how great will you feel when you're no longer at the mercy of Big Pharma and can start treating yourself or your loved ones naturally, the way it was supposed to be? At the same time, the Lost Book of Remedies will be like having my grandfather care for you and your family in the next crisis. Pharmacy chains are incredibly vulnerable to economic collapses, looters, and everything else a devastating event brings. So medicines will vanish.